All right, I think we'll go ahead and begin right now. I see a few more folks signing in. In the interest of time, we will get started. My name is Ron Burke. I'm CEO at the Alliance for Water Efficiency. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and afternoon, depending on where you're located. We're excited to be here today, along with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and Long Beach Water, to discuss a new analysis looking at water affordability in the city of Long Beach, California. This webinar will be 60 minutes in length, with time for questions. Audio, as per usual, is through your telephone or computer microphone. We are going to mute phone lines because we're recording the webinar, and of course your questions can be typed throughout. We encourage you to share your questions with us through the chat feature. Next slide, please. There we go. I'm sure many of you on the line are members, and if you're not, I hope you'll consider becoming a member of the Alliance for Water Efficiency. As you all know, we're committed to promoting an efficient and sustainable water future. We have more than 530 member organizations all across North America. We're a unique network, and really the leading network that brings together water efficiency and water conservation practitioners from water agencies, corporations, consulting firms, and so forth, all across North America. We provide training, research, and other resources for water efficiency professionals. Next slide, please. And before I introduce our speakers, I want to thank so much the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, whose grant made this project possible, and whose cooperation, needless to say, was instrumental. Also, a big shout out to Long Beach Water. You'll be hearing from both of those agencies here in a bit. We'll be starting off, however, with Brad Spilka, our program planner at AWE, to go through the details of the analysis, the water affordability analysis. Lise Goldman from Met will walk us through some of their plans for how to use this data. We'll hear from Tina as well from Met, and then Dean from Long Beach Water. We'll hear not just about their plans for how to utilize this data, but also some preliminary plans to do direct installs for disadvantaged households, really utilizing the data from this report to help do that well. So with that in mind, I will turn it over to Brad to walk us through the report. Brad.
All right, thanks for that introduction, Ron. So today I will be providing an overview of AWE's latest report, an assessment of water affordability and conservation potential in Long Beach, California. In this report, the Alliance profiled water affordability and conservation in Long Beach by reviewing Long Beach's current programmatic and policy efforts, conducting a water affordability assessment, and analyzing the impact of water conservation on customer water bills. Before I continue further, I just want to once again thank Metropolitan for funding the work and Long Beach Water for partnering with us to conduct these analysis. It was a real pleasure working with everyone involved, and it was a lot of fun, and I think we got a great product at the end of this. Next slide, please. Liam, can we move to the next slide? There we go. All right. So I'll start off today with Long Beach's affordability efforts. The first part of this project was to research and quantify Long Beach Water Department's current affordability efforts and programs. Thankfully for us, Long Beach has already instituted some robust programs and policies that have meaningful affordability implications. For this report, we focused on three main aspects: the utility user tax exemption program, Long Beach's recent water rate restructure, and their current conservation programs. Next slide, please. All right, first up is the Long Beach Utility Users Tax Exemption Program. So this program is where Long Beach provides several utility benefits to disabled and senior citizens if they meet income eligibility requirements. You can see on the slide here that there are a great deal of benefits, including a $5 monthly water service credit charge and exempting customers from paying for Tier 1 water usage, which is something I will be discussing in more depth along with the rate restructure. But the main takeaway from this slide and this program is that it provides important financial assistance to low-income, elderly, and disabled citizens for water and all other utility services. Next slide, please. So here is the data for Long Beach's recent water rate restructure. Looking at the chart here, we can compare the before and after, where Long Beach extended the first tier from 5 CCF to 6 CCF and lowered the volumetric water rates considerably. You can see from Tier 1A, the volumetric rate was 1.43, and it was decreased to 0. And for Tier 1B, the volumetric rate was reduced from 2.57 to 1.92. So Tier 1A is the aforementioned user utility tax exemption program, and first tier water was changed to free for all those who qualify, which was a huge development in affordability. And for 1B, that's just all regular single family water consumers, and which basically means that the essential cost of water was decreased by roughly 25% for those people, which is still very meaningful. Next slide, please. So on top of the rate restructure and exemption program, the Long Beach Water Department already has a variety of conservation-based programs that customers can take advantage of. The Long Beach Water Department Lawn to Garden program provides $3 per square foot of lawn removed in the front yard and $2 per square foot in the backyard to use for water-efficient native plant gardens for a total of up to 5,000 square feet. Also in this the direct install garden program was created to provide homeowners in low-income neighborhoods affected by environmental pollution and sustainable landscape free of charge. So these two programs are really big in the fact that they can help reduce outdoor water consumption at a reduced or free cost to Long Beach consumers. And something we'll talk about later is that outdoor water use is a huge part of total water consumption for Long Beach. Next slide, please. So here you can see Long Beach Water's website talking about the direct install gardens, which I just mentioned. And so this is a really cool pilot program that Long Beach has started. It's in a single census tract, and priority is given to residents who meet an income requirement of or below 80% of the local median income. So once again, this is a really important outdoor water assessment and land use program, and we believe that it can be expanded and it has a lot of potential, and we're really looking forward to seeing what else Long Beach can do with it. Next slide, please. Finally, the Socal Water Smart program is administered by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and as a member agency of Metropolitan, Long Beach Water Department is able to offer residents a variety of incentives, such as rebates for products that improve water efficiency and conservation, which include high efficiency toilets, clothes washers, irrigation controllers, sprinkler nozzles, and rain barrels, helping make all these appliances and technological devices more affordable. Next slide, please. So, after AWE reviewed and analyzed Long Beach's current affordability and conservation efforts, we began our own affordability assessment. This analysis looked at data from over 68,000 single-family accounts in 104 census tracts in Long Beach. And you can see all the different census tracts right there in that map that's pictured on the slide. AWE developed census tract and citywide values for average water use, average cost of water, and the household burden indicator for single-family accounts. The assessment also reviewed household income data and examined the water use and cost of water for both exempt and arrear accounts. We also looked at the impact of different water conservation activities on bills, all of which I'll be discussing over the next few slides. Next slide, please. So the first part of our analysis was looking at the household burden indicator, also known as the HBI. So in that first bullet, I have the official equation that we use to calculate the HBI for all 104 census tracts. But to simplify it, HBI is a metric, and it is a measure of water and sewer costs as a percent of the 20th percentile household income. For our results, we found that the HBI averages to 3.27 for a city, and the tracts range of 0.9 to 24.16. So as you can see, there's a really wide distribution of HBIs. Next, we looked at the average annual combined water and sewer bill, which we found was $824. Could we go back to that slide, please, Liam? Thanks. And the average monthly water consumption was 10.24 CCF. All our estimates based on consumption data were from August 2019 through July 2020. So we had a 1-year snapshot of Long Beach. And the census tract HBI was based on the tract level income and tract level consumption data. Next slide, please. So the household burden indicator, the HBIs for all 104 census tracts are visualized on this histogram. So you can see that over 50% of tracts were estimated to have an HBI of equal to or less than 3, and 85% of tracts had an HBI equal to or less than 5. We also can see here that very few tracts were over 10, though there are some tracts out there that are that high, and those tracts with exceptionally high HBIs may be worth a closer look by Long Beach Water Department for outreach programs. But we can generally say that the city of Long Beach has a low household burden indicator for water. Next slide, please. This is a map here that visualizes how the HBI is spatially represented across the 104 census tracts of Long Beach. This map helps illustrate where high and low HBI tracts are located throughout the city. The darker the green, the higher the water affordability burden is for that specific tract. By looking at this map, we can see that there are concentrations of darker green tracts together, mainly in the southeastern portion of Long Beach, signaling that that area of the city may have more struggles with water affordability. And our report has plenty of maps that have these spatial representations of our metrics. So there's a whole lot more of those all throughout the report. Next slide, please. We also looked at income distributions via census data for household income. In the report, we show how many households fall within each range and what percentage of annual income is represented by the cost of water and sewer service. Here is just a simple histogram of the income distribution of Long Beach households, which helped paint a better picture on affordability throughout the city and just how Long Beach residents stack up in terms of their annual income. Next slide, please. So this graph looks at the cost of water compared to household income. By comparing the average annual cost of water and sewer bills to household income, we can see how water can be very unaffordable for those with low yearly incomes. In this chart, the blue bars represent the midpoint of different households' income brackets. The orange line is the result of a simple equation where the average annual water and sewer cost of $824 was divided by each income midpoint to get a general idea of what percent the water bill is of annual income for people in different income brackets. To simplify, a main takeaway from this graph was that nearly 10,000 households in Long Beach are paying 8% or more of their annual water and sewer bills. So that's a huge portion of their income that's going directly to water and sewer. And this shows that, a lot of people do struggle with this water affordability issue. Next slide, please. So here we have a graph denoting how much all Long Beach accounts are in arrears. As you can see, blue is August 2019, orange is August 2020, and gray is August 2021. As you can see, the number of accounts in arrears jumped significantly from 2019 to 2021. However, when we are looking at this long term, next slide, please, we can see that a clearer picture is painted on the arrearage data. As you can see by this, most of the accounts in arrears have been in arrears for over 120 days, which is signaling that most people who can't pay their bills still can't pay their bills. And this can create a vicious cycle where the people who are struggling to pay their bills continue to see more bills that mount, and they can really never get out of that arrearage, which is a very concerning issue. Next slide, please. We looked at the consumption of residential accounts in arrears to see if there are any high users that could be targeted. It doesn't make sense to have accounts that are behind on payments in arrears using water inefficiently. Conservation can play a big role here, as the average monthly water usage of an account in arrear is actually 11% higher than the city average. The role conservation can play here is that people who are struggling to pay their bills shouldn't be using more water than the average. These are prime accounts for targeted outreach by the water utility for all sorts of water conservation and efficiency programs, since conservation can lower their bills and help these customers pay their bills easier and get out of arrears and get back on track with their payments. Next slide, please. So this map is a percent of accounts in arrears compared with the HBI by census tract in the city of Long Beach. So we have these two metrics overlaid on top of each other for each tract in the city. As before, darker green signifies households and census tracts with a higher HBI, but this time a large red circle means that the tract has a higher percentage of customers in arrears. While we found no statistical connection between the two variables, you can see that there are many tracts in the southeast portion of Long Beach that have higher HBIs and percent accounts in arrears. And although there is no statistical correlation, high HBI does not predict high percent accounts in arrears, which is something we were surprised on, even though there are some examples in this map that you can see that. But it really shows that in a few occasions, there are a huge amount of accounts in arrears, and it's also being amplified by those tracts also having a high water burden. Next slide, please. Following the same methods that we used for accounts in arrears, we looked at the consumption of residential accounts in arrears for exempt consumers to see if there are any higher users that can be targeted. Unlike arrears, the average monthly consumption of exempt accounts is actually lower than the citywide average by 21%, which shows that programs like the Utility User Tax Exemption Program is not only helping to keep water affordable, but also encouraging customers to use less water. And while this is great, you can still see there are some really high water users who may not be able to afford those bills and would definitely benefit from outreach for water conservation programs. Next slide, please. Finally, the Alliance for Water Efficiency estimated bill savings on some common strategies offered from Long Beach and Metropolitan using our water conservation tracking tool. Participating in water conservation programs can significantly lower bills to the tune of over 21%. As you can see by this chart, the biggest chunk of percent annual savings can come from outdoor landscape transformation, and also leaks stand to save the most money as well. But overall, looking at this, you can see that 21% is a huge number of a person's average annual bill, and that is a very meaningful and tangible way to lower customers' water bill and to make water more affordable for them. Next slide, please. So this is just a little additional perspective on housing stock. So this is a histogram of when structures and houses and buildings in Long Beach for both single family and multifamily were built over time. So as you can see, about 80% of Long Beach buildings were built before 1980, and in 1994, the Energy EPA Act came into effect, and then in the mid-2000s, WaterSense came into effect. So those were the two main pieces of legislation that were leading to water efficiency and conservation. So most households were built before these standards took effect. To us, that shows that there are a lot of opportunity for fixture replacements, outdoor landscaping replacements, and there's a lot of room for improvement in the building stock to become more efficient and save a lot more water. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's our overall summary. 1, Long Beach has taken action to help make essential water use more affordable for its customers between the rate restructure, the tax exemption program, and a variety of conservation programs, including the pilot direct install garden program. Water affordability varies throughout the city of Long Beach. As we mentioned, the HBI was 3.47 for the city, but there was a wide range that went from 0.9 to 24.16 by census tract. And finally, water conservation can play a meaningful role in lowering water and sewer bills for Long Beach customers. And a combination of indoor and outdoor water conservation strategies can lower an average single-family bill by an estimated 21% annually. And that wraps up everything that AW really covered in this report.
All right, Brad. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the work you put into this outstanding report. Before I turn it over to Elise and Metropolitan, let me just mention a couple of things that Brad touched on. One, we see water rates and water inaffordability, if you will, varying quite a bit across the country. We did a similar analysis for Detroit. And in that city, we saw a substantially higher economic burden associated with the cost of water and sewer. So that is just an example. We're planning to do similar analyses for some other cities coming up, and we'll be sharing those results down the road. Brad mentioned that we're working with Med and Long Beach to identify where there may be some opportunities for water savings through water efficiency, right, and helping folks manage their water bills. We also recognize, of course, that there's some of these disadvantaged households are going to have potentially quite a few occupants, and so that may be one reason that we're seeing some of these disadvantaged households having relatively high water consumption. So when we talk about averages, obviously keep that in mind, and I'm sure Elise may touch on that as well. But what we're seeing across the country, of course, is that water rates are increasing. Agencies are working really hard to manage that, and as Brad just pointed out, water efficiency and water conservation is one important strategy to help continue to make water more affordable. So I'll turn it over to Elise now, who can talk a little bit about how to deploy this data in the Southern California setting. Go ahead, Elise.
Thanks, Ron. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to give a couple of context slides about who Metropolitan is for those who don't know, and then I'll jump into just some more of the direct impacts and value of the study. So Metropolitan, as many of you probably know, is a large water wholesaler in Southern California. We provide water for 19 million people across 6 counties. And we're made up of 26 member agencies, which are a mixture of cities as well as public water agencies. And if you can see right here, the pink delineated area right here is Long Beach, California, where we the Alliance conducted this study. And we selected Long Beach mainly because it's a very good sized city. It's kind of not too small, not too big. The city is very diverse in terms of demographics as well as income level, as you could see from the slides that Brad went over. And they're great partners to work with. You know, we knew that they, you know, have a history of great conservation programs, as well as we were very interested in seeing how their rate restructuring we could look at that, how the impact of that within the you know, with the census tract overlay, to see how that that rate restructuring impacted their communities. And really, we also just felt that you know, we could extrapolate the information from this study to larger agencies and other cities because of the kind of mixture of demographics. All right, next slide, please. And just to give you some further context, you know, Metropolitan, we import water from both Northern California and Southern and the Colorado River watershed. We also, you know, just making up, that makes up just over half of our water supply, but our local supplies include what you see there, the LA aqueduct, as well as groundwater, recycled water, desalination, as well as conservation. And Metropolitan invests in a lot of those local supplies, but those local supplies are typically developed by any number of those member agencies that you saw on the last slide. Next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about why why this is important for Metropolitan. This is a very why affordability. You know, this is an extremely important topic for us. There's a direct impact to the public, which as a large water wholesaler, you know, we need to better understand how the increases, as Ron mentioned, increases in costs across the board to treat water, to distribute water, and we want to know how those rising costs are impacting our most vulnerable communities. A study or an assessment like this can help show the impacts, you know, down at the single family level. And this deep dive with Long Beach's actual billing data, you know, we want to encourage other agencies to do the same or similar analysis to be able to see how their rates are impacting their most vulnerable communities, and also, you know, excited to share how conservation and water efficiency can help relieve that burden or make it a little bit lighter. I thought that's a pretty exciting metric to come out of this study. You know, how we can help those that are in that group that are paying more than 8% of their income to water and wastewater services. This is a quote from our general manager, and you know, one of the things that I think you know, pops out of here is that climate change is one of the biggest drivers for, you know, shifting or, you know, looking at investing in local supplies. And if you can go to the next slide, you know, it's just a, you know, we're in the middle of it now. We're experiencing it now. Our changing hydrology in Northern California on the State Water Project, This picture is from last year, I believe, but it's not that unusual of a site to see. This is a snow survey measuring the snow levels as well as the water content in the snow, and you can see a lot of brown, area behind him. We're also seeing shortages on our Colorado River system, so experiencing firsthand, and we are planning to meet these challenges. Next slide. Planning to meet these challenges with innovation and partnerships. One example of local supplies that we are developing is our regional recycled water program. This is a demonstration facility in Carson, California. This is a partnership with the LA County Sanitation District, where we are co-located on that site, taking their wastewater and purifying that with advanced water treatment to replenish groundwater basins eventually. So we're doing a lot of testing of technology at this facility. We're doing a lot of public education, but this water supply is currently being discharged to the ocean, and it's a way to create another sustainable supply for Southern California. But these types of recycled water, this highly treated recycled water, is can be expensive. So that's where the intersection with affordability comes in. We want to know how these investments are going to impact our, like I said, our most vulnerable communities. Next slide. So as I mentioned, our agencies and as well as Metropolitan investing at a local level in recycling, conservation, groundwater recovery. Many of you have probably seen a graphic similar to this. As our population has continued to increase over the last 30 years, we've been able to not only keep demand flat, but lower that demand. And that's from a combination of what I just mentioned, as well as water efficiency at the codes and standards level. So as technology advances and we're able to get the same performance from equipment, devices, fixtures, same performance with less water, that seems to also help us drive that down. So next slide. Brad mentioned the various water efficiency incentives we have through our Socal Water Smart program. That's our regional rebate program for residential and commercial applicants who are interested in applying for one of our incentives. So we have indoor, outdoor incentives. We have incentives for devices as well as turf removal. We pay by the square foot. We also have more customized or performance-based incentives, and these are great. But at the level, where we're looking at those households with lower incomes, an incentive can still, a rebate can still be a barrier to participating in conservation programs. Next slide. I'm going to show you a visual, some pictures of some of our devices. And also our turf removal. We've got, so that picture there, they would have received a minimum of $2 per square foot to remove the turf and replace it with this California-friendly landscape. The clothes washers, we offer $85 per clothes washer, $40 per toilet, and these are good baseline rebates. But as I mentioned, what we have found is that even rebate programs create a barrier because there can be high upfront costs for these devices and these projects. So accessibility to our incentives is important to us. And what we do is we look at different delivery methods, such as distributing devices or some kind of a direct install where the devices are directly installed to try to overcome those barriers. Next slide is my last slide. Just wanted to share, I think Ron touched on it, that we're looking at some preliminary plans to take the next steps and follow up on this effort to do a direct install project where we're going to select up to 100 homes that are within those census tracts that through the study identified had the highest household burdens in terms of water and wastewater charges. So, this will help us further demonstrate the impacts of water efficiency on bills within those households. We're always looking for additional ways to demonstrate that. And, as one of the slides that Brad showed, yes, there is definitely a focus on outdoor water use, but with just the washers and the toilets, I think we saw like around a 12% combined percentage of reducing consumption on the bills. So that's the plans for a follow-up to this study is to organize that. In Long Beach and Metropolitan and the Alliance for Water Efficiency are working together to get that off the ground, hopefully sometime this spring. And with that, that's all I have today. And we're also going to hear from Long Beach, but I'm not sure am I kicking it over to you, Dean, or are we going back to Ron?
Oh, it's fine either way, Elise. Yeah, well, thank you. I'll go ahead and take it. Thank you so much, Elise. Really good to hear your perspectives on what we're seeing in this study, and excited about the plans that lie ahead. We will now turn it over to Dean with Long Beach Water to share a little bit more on the local perspective. Dean.
Sure, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Elise. Good morning, everyone. And just thank you again to Alliance for Water Efficiency and Metropolitan Water District for allowing Long Beach to participate in the study. It's really been useful and enlightening. And I think the takeaways from this study will really help to inform and guide and validate some of the work that we're doing water conservation wise. So really appreciate the opportunity for this study. So one of the key takeaways that we had from this study from a Long Beach perspective was just the accounts in arrears being so much higher in average water use than the typical household. And so one of the things that we're fortunate enough to have recently implemented is AMI. And so with those smart meters and 1 hour interval data, we're actually able to detect all the leaks going on in our system. And we recently, just a couple months ago, started implementing a leak detection and follow-up program to where we're outreaching to customers that have a leak in the hopes that we reduce any water bills, high water bills before they occur, and so really prevent that cycle of perpetually being in arrears when a customer isn't aware that they have a leak on their account. One of the other things that AMI has allowed us to do is to launch a web portal where customers can log in and sign up for different notifications and even proactively track when their bill is higher than normal. So not necessarily due to a leak, but maybe just different uses taking up more water, and so help them manage their water bills that way and help them to make sure they keep their water bill affordable proactively in a proactive manner. So one of the things that out of this study we now want to look further into is whether or not there's a correlation between any of the accounts in arrears and high bills. Look into that data to see if maybe a single high bill causes a customer to go into arrears and get into this struggle of being to get back to current on their account. Additionally, we want to do data analysis on whether or not there's correlation between accounts in arrears and leaks happening. Just in the couple of months that we've been doing the leak outreach program, anecdotally, we have found several customers that have told us, yes, they're aware they have a leak, but they just can't afford to repair the leak. And so that's really been an area where we're looking to launch a new program, and there's several agencies out there that have developed low-income leak fix programs where they assist customers with their leaks that they might not otherwise be able to repair on their own. And so that's an area that we definitely want to progress and improve here in Long Beach. And then finally, as far as affordability, in terms of accounts and arrears, one of the key things that we've identified is just that when customers are unable to pay their bills and have their water service shut off, and then subsequently have to have their service turned on, that disproportionately affects the low-income customers. And so we're really looking into with a rate consultant, what solutions there are to minimize or even eliminate the fees charged for service shut off and turn on for non-payment. So those are all the different ways where we're really trying to progress our service to our customers as far as water affordability. One of the things that was touched on earlier was our direct install garden pilot program. So really looking at how we can help our customers reduce outdoor water use. I'm sure many of the folks on this call are aware that turf replacement programs, while they have the opportunity to save significant amounts of water, it's also very expensive, and the typical rebate program for that is hard for low-income customers to participate in, just with the significant amount of upfront cost that's involved to do a turf replacement program. And so one of the key objectives of our direct install garden pilot is to see if there's a way that we can, one, reduce the cost of these projects by offering it at a utility scale with a contractor, achieve those economies of scale, see how low we can get those costs. And then secondly, offer that as the direct install to customers who would otherwise be unable to participate in a turf replacement program. And so really helping them to achieve those outdoor water savings where they otherwise would never be able to help themselves reduce their water use. And so then finally, the way that this report is helping us is by helping us to do targeted outreach. It was touched upon earlier that a lot of the Long Beach housing stock is much older, and there's a disproportionate amount of low-income households that have less efficient fixtures with that older housing stock. So that gives us the opportunity to offer increased incentives for higher water savings achieved through, for instance, toilet or shower head replacement. And that's where we really do appreciate the partnership with Metropolitan and the programs and incentives that they've offered in this area, as far as increased incentives for higher flush toilets, for instance. And then finally, Elise mentioned the direct install pilot that we're going to be conducting. And so really seeing what impact there is on customers' water bill when we go in and essentially retrofit their entire home with water efficient devices. And so now with the benefit of the AMI smart meters that we have, we can monitor the before and after performance, and as well as track the customer's monthly bills to see what level of impact we have on water affordability for that customer. And so this pilot will really be a good experiment as far as what is possible, and perhaps what types of programs, direct installation wise, we offer as a utility going forward. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation on what our next steps are and turn it back over to Ron.
Okay, thanks again, Dean, and thanks everyone for your excellent presentations and participation in this project. We have some time now for Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and ask the first one, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Liam to ask some others. And folks, be sure to ask your questions in the chat so we can get to those. I'm wondering, Dean or Elise, do you know to what extent this increase in arrearage accounts or arrears dollars, right? Total dollars as well as the number of households in arrears is related to COVID? I'm assuming that's part of it. And I guess second part of this question is, the federal government approved this low-income household water assistance program. I think that money's starting to flow. It's not a permanent program, unfortunately. I think all of us are hoping that it will become one, but as of now, it's not. But do we know to what extent, COVID has played a role in that trend that Brad showed in the slide?
Sure, I can take that question. So it is almost entirely responsible. I think Brad showed the 2018 data, and prior to 2018, 2017, back for as many years as we looked at it, it was relatively stable as far as the number of dollars that we had in accounts and arrears. And then COVID definitely led to the huge spike. And we are fortunate that that there is at least the one-time help to pay off some of those arrears, and I think it was essentially going to cover the majority of that difference between the normal amount and the COVID amount. So that is one of the things that we've been thinking about when we're looking at the data, doing the analysis on accounts and arrears, and that higher water usage in those groups is accounting for the anomaly that was caused by COVID. And so really we're going to have to dig deeper back further in the data to really identify, okay, who are the typical customers that what does the typical household profile look like outside of COVID, and then see if that resumes back to normal, a year from now, 2 years from now, when that spike is kind of
got it. Okay.
been paid off.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. Yeah, we know that even if COVID hadn't happened, and even if there wasn't this, kind of anomaly, we still see this trend, right, towards, unfortunately, poverty continues in this country, and water agencies are increasingly dealing with aging infrastructure and, new investments to manage water quality, obviously out west in particular, investments to maintain a reliable water supply. So there's a lot going on, and this study really highlights the benefits of investing in water efficiency consistently to help really manage these water affordability challenges we see across the country. Another question, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in right now, that I know we've talked about and others are probably thinking as well, is so why didn't the study look at multifamily housing? Who wants to answer that one? Is that Brad or Elise?
I maybe would defer back to Brad. I would say that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the simplest answer is that the data that was given to us by Long Beach only included single family housing, and there was no multifamily given, and it's also very difficult to disaggregate multifamily to the individual customer.
I think that's why we didn't try to get that data, right? It was just so difficult to disaggregate.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So, but again, and I'm sure folks in this call are thinking, gee whiz, that's too bad, right? So it's not like anyone's lost sight of that, the fact that a number of disadvantaged families are living in multifamily housing. And so I don't know if Elise or Dean, if you want to kind of speak to that. Obviously you've got efforts to reach those folks as well, but we know that across the nation, not just in Southern California, there are extra challenges, right, to reaching folks in multifamily housing. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Elise.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, we have other ways that we target multifamily properties, and oftentimes the direct bill is not being paid by the individual. However, we still see the same barriers in terms of rebate programs. In a multifamily housing, you may be less incentivized to replace a fixture because you don't own that property. So we try to serve those residents in a different way by incentivizing the people who own the building to make those changes, so that hopefully as water costs go up, the residents at those multifamilies aren't going to feel the bill impact there. Yeah. And Dean, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, sure. And I think, Brad, to answer your earlier question of why we didn't include multifamily, and at least touched on it, is, our multifamily customers don't get a water utility bill. Typically they may pay some fraction of the bill through their rent, but our water utility customer for multifamily is the property owner. And at least touch upon what we're trying to do going forward. Historically, we as a water utility just haven't had as strong of a relationship directly with the multifamily tenants, just because they are not our direct customers. And so that's where we are starting to work more closely with the electric and gas utilities, where they do have those customers as their direct customers. And we are right now working on launching essentially a joint direct installation program, where we're going to go into these multifamily buildings and replace the water, electric, and gas devices. And so in that sense, there's that whole water energy nexus. Even though the tenants may not pay the water bill directly, if you can reduce the amount of hot water that they have to use, that will help them reduce either their electric or natural gas bill. So that is kind of for the future.
That's exciting. It's Elise, you had that slide showing that amidst massive population growth in Southern California, total water consumption has actually come down, which is a success story, right? It's a sign that Met and the retail agencies are doing some incredible work. It's a sign that the codes and standards work, right? That's been in place now for a while, is working. Water, this federal and state level standards for efficient plumbing fixtures and appliances. These things are working, but we have to keep investing and evolving to continue to have safe, affordable water supplies, right? And we're really seeing that in all aspects, in Southern California. And we're so happy that you're investing in this research as well, to help make sure that you're really helping your most vulnerable customers along with everyone else. So do we have other questions, Liam?
Yes, we do have a couple other questions. Well, first of all, a couple folks have asked if the PowerPoint slides and recording will be available, and yes, they will be posted on our webinars page on our website in the coming days, so stay tuned for that. Next question looks like it's for Brad. Water conservation efforts can lower an average single-family bill in water used. Would you mind sharing the formula used to calculate such savings? I know you touched on the methodology a little bit, but is there a formula that you want to highlight?
Could you repeat that one more time, Liam?
Yeah, they say water conservation efforts can lower an average single-family bill in water used. Would you mind sharing the formula used to calculate such savings?
So that formula where we got those estimates, we had the average use, which was 10.24 CCF. That was just from looking at the 60,000 something accounts, looking at their water use data and averaging it, data that was generously given by Long Beach. And to quantify the potential of savings, we used the Alliance for Water Efficiency conservation tracking tool, which it's more of an Excel-based formula, and that gave us a certain amount of CCF. And then from there, we divided the results from the tracking tool, which would be like 2.8 CCF divided by 10.24, which is roughly how we got around 21%. So it was more based on putting information into the tracking tool, less so than a complete formula for creating that number.
Yeah, I think if anyone wants a little more detail on this, just feel free to email Brad, right, Brad? You can dive deeper into the tracking tool and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for that overview, Brad. That was helpful. Any other questions, Liam?
Yeah, we do have a couple others that have come in. This looks like it might be for Dean and Elise. How are you getting around Prop 218 concerns with funding work targeting specific populations?
Sure.
That might be a Dean question.
Yeah, I can take some of that. So it is tricky, but one avenue is external funding, grant funding requirements. So basically, not using direct rate revenue to fund these programs. that's a key one. The other aspect is, I'll point to Metropolitan's program is not necessarily having it be low income, but just based off of housing age stock or the existing device requirements, flow rates, and having that essentially be like a proxy for low income, but not necessarily directly a low income. So that therefore anybody could technically apply. So those are the two key ways that we're doing it. And then the other way is, at least for us, and maybe some other utilities have access to this, is Prop 218 wise, again, non-rate revenue. The Long Beach Water Department has a lot of lands and properties that we have revenue generated from, and you're allowed to use that revenue. Apparently, I'm not a rate consultant, but apparently you're able to use that revenue to fund some of these programs as well.
Thank you, Dean. Yeah, and for those maybe from outside of California, the Prop 2, if you probably surmised this from what Dean said, but California is one of a handful of states that strictly largely prohibits the use of rate revenues to fund these types of financial assistance programs that are focused on, for example, lower income communities, and they're also, right, Dean, not required to really directly kind of focus on those demographics, I think. Is that correct?
Right. So I think it's just basically not allowing you to cross subsidize customers.
Okay.
So you just have to be sensitive to not offer programs to a certain group of customers paid for by other groups of customers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, at AWE, we're not a fan of this restriction at the state level. In our 2022 State Water Conservation Scorecard, we'll be asking, for the first time, we're going to ask states, do you have this type of policy? And certainly, generally speaking, we're not a fan of it. It does create barriers, right, to being able to offer these types of programs. But at the same time, we've seen California folks really be creative and find ways to still do it. So that's great. Other questions, Liam?
Yes, next question. When rates are revised to reduce burden on low-income homes, how do the revenue requirements get met? Do you run into cost of service challenges when shifting the burden?
Great question.
I guess that's a question for me again. It's specific to our rate restructure. It was shifting it towards the higher tiers, right? And again, back to Prop 218, you have to set your rates in a way that justifies the costs of each tier. And we were able to do that through, segmenting out our different water sources, water supplies, to have our least expensive local resources at the local tiers, and then recovering that through the higher tiers, and actually placing all of our conservation budget and rebates and all those funds at the highest tiers. So it's what is it, a zero sum game where you do have to find that revenue somewhere else, but really making it affordable for the lowest tiers was the priority.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. Liam, any other questions?
Yeah, we have a couple more questions. I don't know if our speakers can stay a few more minutes.
I know we're just about at time, but if folks are able to hang in there, please do. We'll answer. Dean and Elise, are you able to stay on for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good for a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. Go ahead.
You have a question about any plans to do a deeper customer assessment to learn more about where they get their news, social media, where they might purchase products, etc. And did you do an initial survey to ask what type of conservation programs they want and why?
We hadn't thought about that, but that's an interesting idea, just to make those links. But I would be interested in hearing about their perspectives on conservation.
I know we've definitely chatted about the importance of evaluating, right, Elise and Dean, as the direct install program goes forward, doing an evaluation of that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's, that could be part of it, right?
And it looks like we actually just have one more question. Has Long Beach done any analysis of the projected net impact on utility financials of helping customers reduce their bills and get out of arrears? Is there an estimated benefit of those customers paying something versus nothing toward their bills and/or a net benefit in the form of reduced customer service time or other benefits to the utility.
Yeah, so I've only been involved in this in an ancillary way, so I know we're doing a lot, but I think part of it is, we offer payment plans, and so when the accounts are in arrears, it's not an all or nothing, and so we do work really hard with the customers to work out payment plans to where they can pay off their balance. We are looking at a couple of different ways. I mentioned the turn off, turn on fee reductions. We're also looking at some smart valve options as far as reducing our costs to deploy turn offs and turn ons on the gas side as well. And so there are a lot of different things that we're looking at. As far as the actual impact of the accounts in arrears, thankfully, the bulk of that is going to be paid off by the one-time assistance. So that's where I think, for the most part, we are just looking at how can we address the year in, year out amounts and not necessarily this huge spike from COVID.
All right.
All right. That was the last question.
Last one?
That was the last one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you got something out of this. I know I did. At the Alliance for Water Efficiency, we're committed to playing our role to help make water safe, affordable, and sustainable in the long run. And this analysis, along with the one we did in Detroit, kind of demonstrates the importance of water efficiency and water conservation being a part of that overall strategy in the long run. But we've also heard about some other things, right, today that Long Beach and Met are doing to help with affordability. So a super important topic. I know that our members in particular are really focused on this now. We're going to be having a roundtable for our membership, I believe in April, that's looking specifically how kind of lessons learned, kind of peer-to-peer conversation around what's working to really deliver water conservation programs to disadvantaged households, kind of managing through some of the challenges that Elise and Dean were touching on today. So be on the lookout for that, AWE members. And we appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.